We have a session titled Project Bulwark, how passkeys help enable two-factor authentication for millions of developers. For the speakers, we have Hirsch and Hannah from GitHub. Please welcome them.
All right. Do you want us to get started now, or yeah, cool. All right. So today we're going to talk a bit about Project Bulwark, which was a internal project name for the 2FA mandate that GitHub announced back in 2022 and has been rolling out throughout 2023. So this is 5 to 7 million developers that we'll be enabling 2FA for as a result of actions that they have taken on the platform that make them critical to have 2FA enabled. Now, this presentation is mostly about how passkeys helped make that plan a reality. And you probably know that because you're here. Passkeys weren't really a thing in 2022 when we made the decision to announce this and start enforcing it. And they weren't really a thing even when we started enforcing this in 2023. Instead, this is really about how the promise of passkeys gave us the confidence to announce and enforce this program. So a bit about us. I'm Hirsch Single. I'm the staff PM for identity at GitHub.
And I am Hannah. I'm an engineer on the authentication team.
Cool. And we'll talk a little bit about why we were rolling this program out to begin with, what success looked like, some of the challenges that got in the way of that success, and of course, how passkeys came to the rescue, how passkeys were the solution that we landed on. A bit about how that's gone and what we're excited for next. So this is all about protecting developers and protecting the software supply chain. GitHub's in a unique position where we're not just a SaaS product that people pay money for. In fact, most of you are familiar with GitHub as the home for all developers, a place for open source code. When you run Create React App, you pull down thousands of dependencies from GitHub. All kinds of code that's authored by all kinds of people across GitHub. And the attack that we are really worried about, the one that's very scary to us, is dependency attacks. So you run that Create React app, somebody has infected one of those dependencies, and now you are infected. And anything that you are building is now a new infection vector for other developers. And what we said was, hey, user accounts are really one of the central points in that attack graph. So let's focus first on protecting those. We've got a lot of other work in process to protect the rest of that supply chain graph, but we're talking about the user accounts here. And of course, what we reached for was 2FA. We know 2FA works, we know that it protects user accounts, and so this was our announcement. If you contribute code on GitHub, 2FA by the end of 2023. We'll talk a bit about how we aren't quite there yet and how there's a lot more left to do. But really what mattered was that there was a lot of soul searching and a lot of problem solving that had to go into making this announcement. And really it was because at the start of 2022, middle of 2022, these two issues were on our mind, right? 2FA is still too easy to use. It is usually full of single points of failure like hardware security keys, SMS, or TOTP applications, right? You drop your phone into the lake and now you're locked out of your account. As a point of reference here, the #1 string in support tickets for 2FA recovery was Google Authenticator, because Google Authenticator did not support sync at that point in time. It's no longer in those tickets, which is amazing. But more, yes, thank you. And more importantly, really, is that if people are getting locked out of their accounts, it hurts the entire community because those users tend to say, look, I'm stuck, I'm locked out, I'm dropping out, I'm not gonna be on GitHub anymore. And that's a real problem because now your 2FA mandate is interfering with the success of the product and the success of the community. So what does it look like if you do have a successful rollout? Well, mostly what we're focused on are support tickets and recovery attempts. So what we know is that about 40 out of every 10,000 active 2FA users ends up filing a recovery ticket every month. That's a pretty high number, and we were worried about swamping our support staff if we enabled 2FA for millions more users. Upstream of that is recovery attempts, right? People who think they're locked out, they have to file a recovery attempt. And if they can't succeed in that recovery attempt, then they open up that support ticket. So making both of those numbers go down is something that really mattered for us. Upstream, when we're doing well of recovery attempts, is how many methods each user has, right? So we wanted a 2FA method that was really easy for users to set up, really easy to get onto their account, just no arguments as to why they couldn't possibly use this thing. And downstream of support tickets is user retention, right? So as I mentioned, if your 2FA mandate is not going well, you start seeing people drop out of the ecosystem, and we can't accept that. Just for some graphs, this is too many tickets, right? At the beginning of January, that is just way too many 2FA recovery tickets. About 1 in 4 tickets on github.com is about 2FA recovery. And there was, especially at the beginning of this year, no money to hire more support staff. So we had to do something else instead, right? And a spoiler alert, we did. So what is all this about? Really, it's about a couple different solutions. One was just spreading out the load and prioritizing people based off of the actions they've taken on GitHub. We've already enrolled several million users to 2FA, and mandatory 2FA, and we have several million more to go. But we're not going to do it all at once because that results in massive spikes of tickets and a lot of people upset at once. Really, though, what led us to make this announcement in 2022 was that we believed that we had a solution for making 2FA better, something that had high availability. Everybody could use it. It had recoverability baked in. And with that story, we were able to convince leadership that, no, we can actually do this, and it's not going to be a major problem for GitHub, the community, and all of our customers.
Yeah, so that's where passkeys come into play. Back initially in like 2019 or 2018, at GitHub, we had an internal passwordless implementation that was based off of device-bound WebAuthn credentials. At the time, though, we recognized that they weren't ready yet, and we were really waiting for the next step in WebAuthn, which was like synced credentials, passkeys, essentially. And so we've been waiting ever since. And with those synced credentials, we'll get recoverability. Like Hirsch said, a device in the pond, you can still get that credential back. With availability, meaning that we've got easy access and broader like support and adoption of passkeys. Reliability, the OS and browser integrations for passkeys are really smooth. They're easy for people to use and easy to adopt and well supported. Now that we've waited, the ecosystem looks a lot better for passkey adoption, and we're really happy with where that's going. So, yeah. Now, in 2023, the world is still bright, but we've GA'd our passkey implementation, and we're now aware of the places where there could be an improvement, and we'd love to share that with everybody as a learning experience. The first piece on this is recoverability. What we've noticed is that we're still waiting for full sync support for passkeys across ecosystems. We have a lot of users in different groups, like using Linux and Firefox, who just don't get like the full benefits of passkeys today. The initial user case that I was going to mention was if you're like an Android Chrome user that has a MacBook for work and a Windows PC at home, then you wouldn't get any benefit out of synced passkeys. We're moving away from that. Like that's great, but so even though that's not exactly the case anymore, there's still like a lot of room for improvement, and we're hoping to see more of that as time goes on. The second piece, availability. We at GitHub have a hard requirement for discoverable credentials for our passkey implementation, and in doing so, have caused a restriction for hardware keys in terms of storage and space. And so by trying to target the largest group of people and making passkeys more available and accessible to them, we have made them less available for the hardware key group. And we have a QR code link on the slide behind us that references our feedback issue for our public beta. We got a lot of really good support and discussions started up from our community, and we're really proud of that, and you can read more about it there if you'd like. Next, reliability. This is a chart of all of the failures that we see for passwordless authentication. This morning there was discussions about how easy passkeys are to use, and there were numbers thrown out like 95 to 98% successes at passwordless authentication. For us, it's closer to 90%. The reason for this is because we chose to do a hard requirement for discoverability on login. That means that you can anonymously log in with passkeys. So you don't need to type in your email address, your username first. You can just log in with passkeys. But because of that, we see some issues that we bump into with user experience that come from this experience. So the one that's the most common today is that we have legacy security key credentials that are also WebAuthn credentials on GitHub. Because they were created with an RK discouraged value, some of them still were created as discoverable credentials, and that means that they're still suggested and able to be used during login, even though they can only be used for 2FA. So it's actually, today, the actual value is that half of these errors come from folks who are trying to use a passkey, but they're actually using a credential that's only eligible for 2FA. And so those are those errors that they're bumping into. The second most common scenario that folks hit is they add a passkey to their GitHub account and then they delete it. And they don't go and clean that up from their password manager settings. And so it's still a viable, it's presented as a viable option during login. And so folks will try to use that and they'll fail to use it because GitHub doesn't consider it to be a valid credential anymore. And so all of these things are sort of symptoms of the fact that we already had an existing WebAuthn implementation that accepted platform authenticators. So if you're an RP like that and you want to do sort of an anonymous login flow, you will hit problems like this. But also just the no matching credential scenario, that's just a scenario that everyone will have to hit, regardless of previous historical WebAuthn work, if they decide to do an anonymous login flow like we did. The third most common problem that we hit is that we have a user verification requirement on login, but we still see a significant portion of our failures come from requests that don't actually assert user verification, and so we reject those. Yeah, and then this is an attestation to the community support, that ecosystem support that passkeys have today. As you can see here, there are a lot of caveats to this graph, but it's looking pretty good. Basically, what the point is of showing y'all this graph is that in terms of our ecosystem support with all of the folks that we have on GitHub, we want to be able to make sure that everyone has access to and is able to use synced passkeys before we start to integrate passkeys more strongly into 2FA specifically, and making accounts go completely passwordless. So today, for GitHub.com, for for 2FA enrollment, you need to be using SMS or an authenticator app to enroll in 2FA. And we want to wait and for synced passkey credential adoption to be raised and be more common before we start to allow people to just enroll in 2FA with a WebAuthn credential, since we want to enforce that that credential be synced. So yeah.
Yeah, it isn't all doom and gloom though, right? We're seeing a lot of progress. We're seeing the uptake that we were hoping for when it comes to passkeys. I'm just realizing now I got you to say all the bad stuff and me to say all the good stuff. This is great. No, but we spent 3 months in an open beta of passkeys on GitHub.com, and we got about 27,000 passkeys registered. It took us 3 weeks, late September till now, to hit 100,000 passkeys. So the rate of adoption is, 12 times faster, give or take? That's fantastic. And it's not, I would say, because GitHub has some amazing UI. It's fairly standard. We listened to the FIDO Alliance guidelines and built the thing. We're not even promoting it, right, on login. We're not trying to push people to use passkeys. Instead, I would attribute this mostly to the growth that the rest of the ecosystem is also putting forward. We were lucky enough to ship at the same time as both Google and Microsoft were making a lot of noise about passkeys working in their own ecosystems as well. And particularly for our audience, tech-forward developers, passkeys are oh yeah, that's a thing. I can go use it. I should go set that up. GitHub's one of the upsold items when you open up 1Password, I believe. And so all of that came together for really fast adoption. This is well beyond even what we were hoping for, I would say. And it's not just where we're at, right? We're seeing the growth inside the rest of the ecosystem as well. The updates recently for Windows and Chrome to work with MacBooks, It's good. Those are the signs that we're seeing that tell us we're on the right path and that we will eventually be able to say, yep, here is a passwordless account with just a synced passkey on it, good to go. And that'll be a really amazing day. And then finally, these are really early numbers, so please take this with a massive grain of salt. In particular, it's a self-selected audience of people who have chosen to get into passkeys. But we are seeing the recoverability differences, right? When we talked about, do they open up tickets? Do they even go through recovery? They're 2.5 times more likely if you don't have a passkey to file a 2FA ticket. That's huge. And about 50% more likely to go through the recovery flow, to even think that you've lost your account. And again, big grains of salt there, but those are the numbers we were hoping to see, and it's really cool to see them there. Got to show off some graphs again. You can tell I'm the PM. That hockey stick is what you like to see with product adoption, right? That is what is telling me, yes, passkeys are here. That has been a sustained growth over time of people just saying naturally, yep, I want to go use that. The other one that I really want to brag about a little bit is this 2 factors item. This is the percentage of 2FA users who have 2 or more factors enrolled on their account. That number has shot up ever since we started doing this mandatory 2FA rollout in earnest. And that is because it turns out if you tell people you have to go enable 2FA, they are twice as likely to register multiple accounts or multiple methods of 2FA because they're a lot more worried about losing their account. And so, this is one of those numbers that will directly benefit the number of people who think they have lost access to their account. It'll reduce the number of recoveries. It'll reduce the number of support tickets. It'll reduce the number of people getting locked out of their ecosystem. So what's next for GitHub, at least here? First off, following in Google's footsteps and promoting passkeys heavily on logins for all of our users, right? I'm looking forward to hitting 100% of users getting that upsell, probably by the end of the year, if not earlier. We've got millions more users to enroll in mandatory 2FA by the end of the year. And again, we've got passkeys now. I feel so much more confident about doing that even over the holidays, which is not really considered the best idea normally. And then finally, like I said, getting to passkey only accounts, right? That's gonna be a really big deal when that day comes. There's still a couple challenges ahead of us that we are looking forward to solving with the help of the community, with everybody here. In particular, how we upgrade and really improve the upgrade flow for either existing WebAuthn credentials as well as unsynced passkeys on platforms that have gotten sync support. What do we do there? How do we make that a really clean flow so that we can get everybody onto the best and greatest passkey option that is available to them? So if that's something that you're interested in, happy to find you later in chat and open up to any questions that we've got right now.
Yeah, we have one online. Let's take this first and maybe open to the floor. So how is GitHub handling user authentication on shared devices, computers, with respect to passkeys?
This has been a big one, and it's actually been one of the big challenges that we've had with the mandatory 2FA rollout is service accounts. So that user account's not actually a user, it's Jenkins bot 32. And you can't really do a passkey on that. What we've been telling people instead there is to take their TOTP credentials, like the key that goes behind TOTP, and save that in a shared password manager, and then circulate that amongst the users who have to get access to it. It's not a great experience, but I don't really see passkeys as a solution there. And in fact, the kind of the unmanageable nature of passkeys, in the sense that I set up my phone as a passkey on the Jenkins bot, and then I leave the company. There's no good way of controlling that access after the fact, outside of going onto the account itself and deleting that credential. And so we wouldn't recommend passkeys there.
If they are, if they are using a password manager like 1Password, they might be able to create a passkey there and share it across accounts, and then they'd be booted from the shared 1Password account.
Yeah.
So there are options and solutions there. They're just not technically our expertise.
Yeah, actually, that's great. Thanks.
We have one more online. How does passkey alone pass 2FA requirements?
So this is where that user verification step comes in, right? So passkeys are traditionally, your factors are something you know, which is generally the password, something you have, and oh my goodness, I am failing right now. I should know the third one. Thank you, something you are. Oh goodness, get me off the stage. So passkeys, though, they cover 2 out of those 3, right? They are traditionally something you are in the sense of a biometric check, or something you know in the sense of a PIN, as well as something you have, either the device or the actual physical hardware key. And so for our perspective, that's good enough for 2FA.
Okay, next question. What do you do when a user enters a legacy security key instead of passkey, your number 1 error?
Oh, yeah. We show an error on login that says this credential is only eligible for 2FA. And then if they log in with their user password and then authenticate with that security key, there should be a pretty decent chance that we'll show them an upgrade flow that lets them promote that credential pretty easily. One of the issues that we had with our initial implementation from 3 or 4 years ago was that it was 3 different authentication requests to be able to promote a credential from a security key web authent credential into a passkey. And so we found a way, specifically dropping that registration from the exclude list and being able to sort of shortcut all of that by recognizing what credential they just authenticated with for login. So yeah, that's what we do. We show folks errors and then we help them promote those credentials.
Thanks, Anna. Anyone in the room? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
You mentioned how a very common error is that somebody who has created a passkey already deletes it on their account, and then it's, of course, still on your device or keychain, and they haven't realized, they just tried to use it and they cannot. Do you have any recommendations on how to deal with those situations, other than maybe some good UX when you're deleting the key in your account to warn them or something like that?
Yeah, that is what we went with. We have a delete confirm modal that warns folks to clean up their passkey in both places. For us, this pain point specifically comes from wanting to have the hard discoverable requirement and allow that sort of anonymous login. If you're an RP, a solution to this is to do what folks like Google did, which is to make folks input a username or an email first, and then take them to passkey. That is a 2-step process. You identify the user, and so you know what the list of eligible credentials is. If you're a user, it's just reminding people to clean it up because of the way that we did it. We wanted it to be a convenient login flow for folks, but in doing so, we introduced those errors that you saw on the graph. And aside, something I forgot to mention in the slides is even though you can see our error rate's higher and folks are having more friction, it doesn't actually directly translate into confusion. We don't get a lot of negative feedback about those experiences. Folks seem to understand to get the gist of it rather than submitting direct feedback or complaints to us about those experiences.
So maybe this is the last question.
Thank you for the amazing presentation. Did you guys implement the autofill piece as well? And that autofill, how does that tie into cleanup? Because I've experienced scenarios where the browser will still remember the passkey, and if the user cleans the passkey on your side, how did you guys deal with those scenarios?
Yeah, that's exactly what that require passkey, or sorry, you're talking about the stale ones? Yes. Yeah, that's what the no matching credential error is. All we can do really is show an error message saying hey, you sent us something that you deleted on our side.
It's still on your side.
Right, you need to delete it on your side, though.
Yeah.
That's a bad experience in general.
It's a bad experience for it's not just Chrome, it's everyone.
Yeah.
The only thing that we can do is warn people when they're deleting that passkey. And when they try to authenticate with it, we don't say, we can't guarantee that that you deleted this already. Instead, we just say you need to use your password, and we hope they go to their user settings and notice that it's not there.
Okay, Hirsch, Hannah, closing remarks, please.
Hit us up if you're interested in chatting more about our experiences, asking any questions. We've tried to be a font of advice, but if there's anything else you're curious about, let us know.
What's your GitHub handle?
Oh,
that's great. My handle is Hagould, Hagould.
So, yeah, thanks everybody.
Okay, thank you.